I'm leaving New York City after 6 months, just for a week though. I'm going to the Dominican Republic for super secret reasons, which you'll find out in next week's video. So you're now hooked for 2 weeks. But I thought I would take this time, as I'm exactly 6 months into my time here in New York City, to reflect on positives and negatives about living in this grand big apple, living here as a 24-year-old, and cover things as bluntly as possible about why you should probably think about living here and also reconsider living here if you're already thinking about it. Biggest thing, and full disclaimer, I am an NFP, an ENFP, and MBTI, so my Myers-Briggs naturally orients me to be like this, however you want to say it, but the city is truly never dead. I have been in various cities. I've been in Boston, I've been in Chicago, I've been in Los Angeles, I've been in Atlanta, I've been in Miami, I've been to Washington, D.C. There is no other city like this in the United States that is constantly alive 24/7. Wherever you go, there's people. If you're not into that, probably reconsider it. But if you're like me, who naturally gets energy out of other people, New York City, without a doubt, is the place to be. I've never seen anyone come close to this in the United States. Definitely there's places outside the United States, especially in Asia and South America, that are at this level of rowdiness. But New York is New York, especially within the United States. That brings up the more bigger picture idea that there's always people, and there are a wide variety of people everywhere. I'm actually not a big believer in this melting pot idea. A lot of the people that I've met in New York tend to stick into their corners. I've not seen much mixing of the different demographics that are here, but there is a demographic for you, regardless of who you are and what your interests may be. In a city of 10 million people, ranging from students to people that live here full time, there is something and someone and some group for you, regardless of who you are and what you enjoy. New York has it. And it really, truly doesn't matter what kind of background you're coming from. New York is going to have the utmost thing for you here. That brings up a slightly different note that if you are someone that is ambitious, if you're someone that wants to do well, and if you're someone that wants to get pings like that constantly on your phone, there's no better place also in the United States. People here are smart. People here are hustling. People here are overqualified. Everyone's in this rat race. People want to beat each other and also beat themselves and continue to do well. On the similar note, people are good looking. People are well dressed. People are top notch here. And whether that is fabricated, whether they are hurt inside and go home and cry every day, that's kind of a deeper discussion. Bottom line, there's tons of people. There's people everywhere. Everything's constantly alive. And the people here, at least on the surface, are relatively top quality people that would be harder to come by elsewhere. Of course, this matters what standards you have for evaluating people, but at least at the surface level, New York has that. On the flip side, where I feel a little burdened / bothered / one of the reasons why I don't think I'll be here in the long run is the intrinsic reason that no one else is here for the long run. Most people that you talk to are always saying, I can't wait to leave New York. I'm going to ultimately leave New York. Why would anyone be in New York forever? I can't raise a family here. Many people also want to go back home eventually, even if the home is New Jersey or Connecticut. New York City doesn't seem to be a place of permanence by any means. And that gives you a weird sense of constantly being okay with people leaving and also recognizing that you at some point will also leave. I have seen families here. I've interacted with families here through churches and other organizations that I'm part of. And a lot of them typically fit this mold of both parents are working, or they live in Upper East Side, or they have some other house in Long Island City or in the Hamptons, and they usually have their kids looked after by nannies in Central Park. And you often see people that don't look like each other with the kid in the stroller and the person pushing the stroller get a little confused. That's sometimes a lot, in no way of offending those that are adopted, but clearly there's nanny and stroller pairings. I personally don't want to do that with my kids. So long story short, I don't envision myself being here long, and most of the people around me seem to be caught up with this or subscribe to this idea that they won't be here for a long time, which makes investing in long-term communities hard because they simply seem to not exist as much as suburbs or even other cities. On top of that, there is this everlasting burden that you feel like you're carrying, even if you're not overly ambitious. And I'm someone that is overly ambitious in various ways. I don't know if I'm particularly career obsessed, which might be hypocritical to you guys watching this channel, mostly probably because of career advice. But regardless of who you are, I think there's a certain level, a certain layer of burden that is on your shoulders as you're walking around in New York, even sitting at home alone in New York, this everlasting feeling of, I need to be doing something, or if I'm not, I am missing out on something and I am already behind. It's a weird burden. You feel like you're carrying the world upon your back. You feel like you need to constantly prove yourself and be the New Yorker that you're bound to be. And even as a non-native New Yorker and a New Yorker only being here for 6 months, it's a constant burden. And I've never had this burden while I was in Chicago, not had this burden when I was in college. Even at the start of my investment banking career, this was never a thing. But now that I'm in New York and I'm in relatively a pretty cool job that is not overly burdensome. Of course, startups are tiring, but this burden just seems to be originating from Central Park or Staten Island. Something is spewing this burden that I feel like I'm constantly carrying. Maybe it's the humidity, but there is a feeling that you feel like you're carrying, and it's pretty tough. And there's this anxiety/tension that's constantly around, even if you're in fun environments. Maybe I just need to take a chill pill and relax. But I've heard similar stories from other people that also have relatively chill personalities, but New York seems to be bringing the unchill out of everyone. With the abundance of people and locations, restaurants, jobs, fun activities, comes this idea of optionality without actually them being options. Having options does not equate to you actually having those options. There's an infinite array of people, potential significant others, food, clubs, jobs, living spaces that you wish you were part of, that you can dream yourself being part of, or momentarily you might have been part of at some point, but it's not sustainable, especially considering the cost, but also just the mere availability of these individuals to you. And there's constantly people trying to rat race, get ahead of each other, trying to be at the better and the best of places. And this optionality continues to add on to this relatively toxic mentality of, when will I become that next step and open up that next layer of optionality? I think this all aligns with everything that I talked about, both positives and negatives. New York is an area of abundance, but not actual abundance, and in turn making you feel not as abundant because of this overabundance. Not sure if that made sense, but there's a lot of optionality and there's tons of things to do. There's tons of people, but at the end of the day, you often find yourself doing the same thing every single weekend and ultimately hanging out with very similar people, even though you theoretically have 10 million others to do it with. And in some ways, I feel more limited by New York than any other place I've ever been in. In conclusion, I think New York is one of those check in the box places where every young person, every person living in the United States that has the means to do so should live at some point. It's worth saying just to say, I've lived in New York. And New York definitely opens doors, allows you to meet people that you've never met otherwise, and is a great place for young people to do young people things. However, I don't think the current lifestyle that I'm living, that I have seen any of my peers living, is sustainable, and it's best lived out when you have less to risk and less on your shoulders more tangibly, rather than the weight that I was talking about earlier. And I think it's one of those places where before you're married, before you have kids, it's definitely worth living. And it's a place that I want to tell my kids, my friends that I meet elsewhere about, and saying that I have New York experience. And the more experience is always better, in my opinion, especially if it comes at the benefit of growing through discomfort. So in ultimate conclusion, I think New York is phenomenal for people our age to experience the abundance of optionality or the lack thereof, and truly understanding who you are by interacting with a wide variety of people. As I mentioned before, I think the melting pot aspect is much lacking than advertised, but it is truly what you make of it. And I advise everyone in New York to try to go outside of your comfort circles and not go to the same club, same bar every weekend, not try to interact with people that solely look like you or think the same as you, and use this opportunity to interact with those that are quite different from you, because New York, I think, is the best place to do it, and that's really what the city's about. Apologies on clickbaiting. I am not leaving New York anytime soon. I will be back from the Dominican Republic on the 16th of July, at which you will be waking up to another video that explains what I was doing in the Dominican Republic and why I was doing what I was doing in the Dominican Republic. As always, I thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have a phenomenal day wherever you are, especially if you're in New York, and I will see you guys next time. Let's go.